body knows how to heal itself. If you can remove disease states, the body will naturally move to some equilibrium. So it's the same thing. If you remove confusion, if you remove all the things that we do that cause us to be out of balance, then the movement process itself will naturally take you to where it is that your system is trying to go. So the effort that we put into things is usually wasted effort when we have an idea of where we should be rather than allowing our system to move. So in trance dance, we don't have any deliberate movements. We can't even see what's going on. We take away all of the things that a person would rely on to determine what is reality. All that's left is impulse. And if you stay in impulse enough, your natural guidance system kicks in. Now, I happen to believe that in sighted people, we have become overly dependent on our eyes. This is not to say that your eyes are not an amazing anatomical tool to have, but when you understand that greater than 90% of the way that a human being perceives reality is through their eyes, then the ears never fully develop. A sense of sight, a smell, our olfactory senses never fully develop. And so we become, to a great extent, kind of crippled because we become over dependent on seeing. So when I put a bandana in a process in which you are now blindfolded when you do it, it is not to cripple you, it is to help the other senses to wake up. I mean, if we could smell, hear, feel as accurately as we can see, we would become clairvoyant, is what we would become. It's just unfortunate that in a sighted world, we keep feeding the light. The way that I say it is that human beings grow in the light, but we transform in the dark. And you have to make the distinction between the two. Both have value. But the light story in Western culture, for sure, has really been energized. And so what you have are people who are really involved in light work, intimidated by shadow work. And this is exactly the opposite of what shamanic people were talking about. Shamanic people really understood the value of the shadow. They said your power came from your shadow. I take that literally. That bandana is not just a metaphor. It is a real full-on tool for people to separate themselves from light. So it's not correct to say that your eyes and your brain are separate. They're really not separate. They're anatomically the same thing. So if you want to know what really feeds your brain, it's your eyes in sighted people. So if you block it out, if you don't allow light to get in there, what happens is your other senses have to wake up. There just isn't an option. Every person that's ever woke up in the middle of the night and the lights weren't working, now you got to find a flashlight or something, and you can't see, notice that their other senses will start to wake up immediately. Actually, I don't think it would take very long if we were forced to. I've tried to imagine what would humanity do if we all woke up tomorrow blind. I saw a show actually. It was like one of those Twilight Zone shows, and it was like one day everybody was blind. With one person, I think, that could see, and everybody else was blind. And it was interesting the way they depicted the story, because as the story went along, you could see how people were making their adjustments to dealing with reality, not being able to see through their eyes. Obviously, it's hindering because we've set it all up based on being able to see. But blind people live in a world of sighted people all the time. And I find it fascinating that blind people come to trance dancing, and the one thing that always amazes me is that the one thing they insist on is wearing the bandana, because it's part of the ritual. They don't see their blindness as something that separates them from other people, but sighted people do. This is how one-sided the story becomes when you can see. So we lose some things when we overly become dependent on anything, not just our sight. Anything in your life in which you give a tremendous amount of power to, at some point there's other aspects of life that just go to waste.